Hello and welcome back to the George's Live podcast. I am your host, Travis Smith. This is the official podcast of George's Majestic Lounge located in Fayetteville, Arkansas. You can go online to georgeslive.com to see what shows are coming up as well as purchase tickets for those shows. Be sure to go give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at George's Majestic Lounge, and on Twitter at George's Majestic. If you guys haven't checked out the last few podcast episodes, we had Randall Shreve on talking about his Drummer Boy Infinity Presents a tribute to Freddie Mercury. We talked about his process in getting that together, as well as his Randall Shreve solo stuff, and with performances with his band Randall Shreve and the DeVilles. We also had Steve Kimmock on. He came to George's at the 1st of October for 3 wonderful nights of music. 2 of those nights we had Mountain of Venus opening, and Steve came on the podcast alongside Harold here at George's, and we got to chat about everything down to how he decides what guitar to take to gigs and travels with them, and his past experiences, and a little bit about his band, Steve Kimmock and Friends. And on this episode, we have Shmeeans from the band Lettuce on. Lettuce will be here in November. For those of you in the Jam crowd, you guys already know that Lettuce is one of the hottest bands and have been for a while now. One of the best live shows you could see, and I was absolutely honored to get to chat with these guys. And let's go ahead and take you straight to that. This is Shmeeans from the band Lettuce on the George's Live podcast. All right, I am here with Shmeeans from Lettuce. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's up, brother?
How are you?
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. I'm doing great.
Absolutely, man. There's for the last few years, there's been a lot of when is Lettuce coming back to town, and so we're super stoked to have you guys coming back to Fayetteville.
Oh, that's a good thing. Hey, man, we're psyched to be coming back.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to chat with you about Elevate and about you guys coming back through town. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Let's go ahead and dive in on this album. You guys just released Elevate a few months ago, and you guys have been touring in support of that. How's that been?
Oh, it's been great, man. It's really fun to play these tunes that we've been kind of cooking for a while, and then see how different the reactions are when people actually know the stuff, like they've been listening to it at home and they know the music, and when we play it, how excited they get versus maybe playing these same songs before the album was out,
Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys play any of the tunes before you actually recorded them live?
Oh yeah, we do that with most of our stuff. We try and do that so we can start getting that live feel where we add things and subtract things, and the tunes grow and they change, and then they kind of just become more letified as time goes on, and it's nice to be able to be in the studio and capture some of that, which is kind of like our live thing, which I think people really gravitate towards.
Whenever you guys are doing these songs live, how do y'all know it's time to record them? Do you guys have do you set a time and you're like, if this is where it's at, then that's how we're going to record it at that time, or do you guys feel it?
It's just more organic than that. I think it's just, someone will come in with a tune and we like it and we start playing it, and then eventually it'll be time to record because it's just time to record, and you have enough tunes and you got to put them down.
Absolutely. And you guys worked with Russ Elevado on this, who's worked with The Roots and Erykah Badu and D'Angelo. How was that experience?
Man, he's just the coolest. He's fun to be around.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's a kind of a big deal, because the vibe is great in the studio. The vibe's going to be great on the recording.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, he doesn't use digital plugins ever. He's an analog guy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Got rich, warm tones on everything then, I bet.
Yeah, he does, and he doesn't overdo it to me. He has a great minimalistic, simplistic mindset when coming in here. He's not trying to change stuff. He's trying to enhance stuff, and I really love that about him.
Did you guys find that he brought anything out in the band that you guys might not have seen or had really there before? Did he help pull out any untapped gems of any sort or anything?
Most definitely, man. When you give people a certain amount of freedom in the studio, then you know, spontaneous things can happen.
Absolutely, I bet. And you
And
guys,
really, isn't that what recording is about? Capturing spontaneity, capturing that moment, capturing that time.
yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. You guys, I thought it was pretty cool. You have Marcus King sing on a track?
Yeah, man, we've been hanging with Marcus, doing a bunch of gigs with him, and he ended up writing to one of these tracks that were, you know, in our vault, and there you go. And
Yeah, dude, he's a super talented dude. I bet he brought a lot to the table. And you guys,
I mean, what can't this dude do? He's like the
oh,
most
dude,
monstrous singer and monstrous guitar player ever. So
I saw him 3 or 4 years ago at a festival and got to interview him as well. And honestly, from the first song, everybody, I think it ended up getting rained out at that particular festival halfway through it, but it was kind of right when he was really hitting the festival scene and stuff, and it was just mind-blowing how good they are live, and the talent that he's able to pump out with his voice and guitar live is just insane.
yeah,
On your
we're
guys,
really lucky to have him on Elevate. Thank you, Marcus.
yeah, absolutely. And he'll be here at the club. We're looking forward to that as well in November, so it'll be his first time here in Fayetteville, so that'll be fun. On your guys' covers on the album, how did you guys choose what covers you were going to put on there?
That was, again, really organic as well. That's all hand done from one of Jesus's really, really, really close friends.
Nice.
There you go.
How does your guys' songwriting process go? Do you guys kind of start off with jams and stuff like that, or everybody kind of brings in different parts and you build on it? How do you guys come up with such a wide variety?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's necessarily one process.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we have a creative genius in our group, Adam Deitch.
Mm-hmm.
And he is one of the most prolific writers I've ever met. And, you know, he really is encouraging to everyone in the band to, like, be like, yo, let's come with some ideas and whatever you have, and whether it might be a riff or whether it might be you were at home and you made a demo on your stuff, which to me is like probably the most likely process of ours, where like kind of individually at home people come up with stuff and then they bring it to the band and then add or subtract from that and letify the stuff, and then there might be something that like in the middle of the show we come up with and start playing, and that becomes the basis for, you know, a new track or something like, you know, or maybe Zoidus played something on his Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the start of a new track for us. There's not really one way, but most of the way, I'd say everyone individually comes up with ideas and we bring them together.
Nice. Everybody's so creative. I like the way that you guys are able, you're more than a funk band, more than a soul band. You guys bring so many different genres together, it feels like. I know.
And if you ever get to be around someone like Adam Deitch, he's just so creative and so encouraging that he makes you want to be more creative, and you know, it's really great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's and another thing I like about what you guys do is your horn arrangements are the catchiest things on the planet. Whenever I would be playing I'll play your guys' music, you know, I'd be playing it like in a bar while I was bartending or something like that, and pretty much when you guys are like my go-to for getting the crowd moving and kind of setting a good vibe in the room. It's like 100% hit every time. That the second you guys start playing, everybody starts tapping fingers and stuff like that. So it's crazy.
That's
how
good to hear. Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely,
I
man.
appreciate that. I mean, that's really all we want to do is just make people move.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So you guys got a little bit of time off on this tour. How you guys been spending that? Do you guys still hang and everything when you guys are off the road, or do you all kind of have your own thing?
You know, we all have our own lives individually, and we live in different cities. Like Jesus lives in Los Angeles, and Ryan Zoidis lives in Maine, and Adam Deitch and I both live in Denver, and Eric Bloom now lives here as well, and Nigel lives in New Orleans, but Nigel's currently on tour with John Cleary. I think he's somewhere out of the country. I'm not sure where
he gets around, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does get around, man.
So
and Deitch is doing break science currently. Ryan Zoidis and I are both fathers, and we're coming home, and we love our families, and we're being family men when we're home. And Bloom and Zoidis have a wine business together.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's called Sauvage Selection, something like that. Look, Benny, look it up. You Google it.
Google it. Sounds like
you'll find it. You'll find it. I know they've got great ones.
Yeah, grape ones?
Great.
I thought you threw out a pun.
I guess they are grape wines as well.
So on this tour, you guys are going overseas, which is pretty cool. Taking it over there. So you guys pretty stoked about that?
I'm beyond stoked for that. Like, this is the first real deal we're getting in a bus, and we're touring Europe tour. We've done some fly dates before here and there, but this one is the most serious European tour we've ever done. So
nice.
I can't wait to feel Europe like that.
Whenever I talk to folks that's toured a lot overseas and stuff like that, I always like to find out what the musical fabric is like overseas, because everybody, you hear that American music, just anything American, people will roll out to see it and stuff like that, but also just good music over there seems to be super well received where you guys are headed. So that looks like it's going to be a lot of fun pretty much everywhere you go.
I have, do we have time for like a small story for half a second?
Yeah, dude, we got time, all the time in the world.
This is I'm a young lad, and it's my first time ever going overseas to Europe. And I'm in Zurich, Switzerland for a month, playing a gig at a place called the Casa Bar out there, with some wonderful, wonderful musicians, including Jeff Basker, who's now like a super famous producer. He was the first keyboard player in Lettuce, actually. And it's the first night out there, and I'm coming from playing in Boston at Wally's Cafe. Really like that's our real school of like where a lot of us came through, and a lot of great musicians are still there, and it's a historic place. Everyone, if you're ever in Boston, should take the time and go to Wally's Cafe. So we're coming from there, and those crowds that we were playing at, they were like American loud, and they'd be like, yeah, that's what you play, and the great solo, and they'd be expressive, and then we go to Europe, and it's pretty much the same band from Wally's, and we play, and no one's moving, no one's shouting. The guy at the bar is just kind of staring at me, and this is the first time I've ever played Europe, and I'm like freaking out in my head. I'm like, oh man, do they hate us? And on the set break, right as I'm having that moment of freaking out, the guy who was staring at me at the bar walks over to me, and he says, hey man, I've never heard music like this before. It makes me think that I should be living my life more like the music you're playing. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the deepest comment anyone has ever even said to me.
Holy moly.
After listening to music. And it was right there that I kind of had an epiphany that, like, culturally it's different, but they are intensely listening in a different way than I'm used to seeing people listen. Yes. And it was a great lesson for that. And just because people aren't necessarily dancing and moving the same way, it doesn't mean that they're like not deep into what you're doing, because it turned out to be he was super deep into what we were doing. I'm just saying that we all feel music in the same way, we just express it differently.
Well, let's hope that you have more experiences like that. I bet you will, especially if you guys haven't been over there yet. I bet people are super stoked about it.
We're definitely going to be playing in front of a lot of people who have never heard us before.
Well, man, thank you for coming on the podcast. I just wanted to chat with you and catch up, and looking forward to having you guys here at George's Live.
Man, I'm looking so forward to coming down there, hanging out, and thank you for having
Absolutely, man.
Having lettuce, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. All right, I'll see you at the show, and thank you. And that is it for this episode of the George's Live podcast. I'd like to thank Shmeeans from the band Lettuce for coming on and chatting about their show coming up. To get tickets for that show and for any other shows at George's Majestic Lounge, go to georgeslive.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at George's Majestic Lounge and on Instagram at George's Majestic Lounge, on Twitter at George's Majestic. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, that really helps us out, and it really helps you out as it gives you notifications when we have new episodes. We have some great new guests coming up in the upcoming weeks, and we're going to be dropping a lot more podcasts. So keep listening, guys. Thank you all. I am your host, Travis Smith, and we'll see you next time.